Hello everyone, thanks for tuning in to today's first video. We're doing the January 2019 month-ahead forecast for today's first video. So we're going to have a review of December's forecast first of all, and then we'll have a look at January with the CFS V2 and also with Beijing Climate Centre. And then at the end of the video, there'll be a little sneak peek for February. So I'll get on with that for you very shortly. Just to say that today's second video coming up on the homepage, we'll be having a detailed look at weather for the next week, 10 days. We'll have all of the latest on what's going on in the stratosphere over the North Pole as well. So that'll be with you later on this afternoon on the homepage. So the December 2018 month-end forecast was for a slightly milder than average December and also wetter than average as well. And usually for 2018, which was a very dry year, we thought that December would probably come out with above average precipitation. We say temperature anomalies are likely to be around half a degree to 1 degree above the 61 to 1990 average. Was expecting a couple of cold snaps. We thought there'd be a cold snap in the middle of December, either from the north, but more likely from the east. And then we thought we may get another cold snap towards the end of the month. So let's see how the forecast panned out. And we can see that actually it came out warmer than expected. Although we did say that if those cold snaps in the middle of the month and at the end of the month, they didn't come off, then we would probably come away with a very mild December, and that's indeed what happened. Now, we did get actually a little cold snap in the middle of December. Didn't last very long. It wasn't particularly cold anyway. But actually, we did get into the east in the middle of December, but it wasn't as cold as we anticipated. Then we did not get that cold snap at the end of the month. It's very mild from Christmas to New Year. So this means that we did come away above average. So I suppose that side of the forecast did go right. It was a milder than average December, but more so than we thought. So across Scotland, we see that set against the 81 to 2010 anomaly, and that's what we'll be focusing on now exclusively. We won't be looking at 61 to 1990, except when we look at the CET at Hadley, because they are still using 61 to 99. But for Gasworthy's own forecast, be they sort of monthly or seasonal, we will now just be focusing on 81 to 2010 this year. So set against the 81 to 2010 average, we see that for Scotland, actually it was around half a degree to 1 degree above average for many parts of Scotland. But coming down into Northern Ireland, Northern England, it's kind of like over a degree above average, and through the Midlands, Wales, South West and Central Southern England, we're kind of like 2.5 degrees to 2.5 degrees above average. So an exceptionally mild month in the south. If we was to look at 61 to 90, which we won't, but if we was, it will be even milder than that. So it really was a very mild December indeed. As far as precipitation is concerned, that side of things was a little bit topsy-turvy actually. So we see a drier than average month, or average to drier than average through Scotland and parts of Northern England. Northern Ireland comes out around average, and then much of England and Wales actually comes out average to above average. So obviously it looks like it was wetter in the south and drier in the north, which is a rather unusual anomaly. And when you get that anomaly, normally you would expect that to be caused by a southerly tracking jet stream. When it's wetter in the south and drier in the north, you would normally expect to be having high pressure towards the north and low pressure towards the south, which would normally in December or in winter, that would normally be quite a coldish signal. So a very strange month, December 2018. The anomalies, particularly the precipitation anomaly, would be suggestive of probably quite a blocked and what should be fairly coldish month, but we know it's actually an exceptionally mild month. So really quite a strange month, December 2018. Certainly not a typically mild Atlantic-driven zonal month. I think that is something that does come across there from those anomalies. We don't have the kind of pattern that you would normally expect with a very mild winter month, which is where it would be wettest in the northwest and in the west, and driest in the east and the southeast, with high pressure kind of like across France from the Azores, low pressure to the northwest of Scotland back to Iceland. So it's not that kind of pattern. Very strange month with those anomalies during December. And I'm not sure whether this December forecast panned out too well either, really. It was a milder than average month. We said we'd probably have a milder than average month in December, and it was. So I suppose that went to plan, but it was a lot milder than we thought. Precipitation not really correct either, although again for England and Wales it wasn't wetter than average month. So quite a strange month, and I'm not sure the outside of this December forecast was all that good, to be honest. But let's move on to January. So this is how the 700 millibar height anomaly is looking from a CFS V2 for January 2019, and we find that we have below average heights up to the north of the country in January, with above average heights being forecast to be to the southwest. Excuse me, and this leaves us in what will be a rather Atlantic driven signal for January. We'd still be bringing those westerlies through. Of course, the wettest, most unsettled conditions will be in the north and west coast of the low pressure, but driest conditions will be in the south and southwest. Notice there is a very deep trough of below average heights across eastern, northeastern parts of Europe, and it's not really that evident what's causing that deep area below average heights there. Normally, if you've got low pressure there, you would have high pressure here, and that would be sending the trough over to northeastern Europe with those cold northerly winds. So it's not all that evident what's causing that very deep trough across sort of northern Russia and the Baltic area and into into eastern parts of Scandinavia. So anyway, for us it looks like it's generally Atlantic driven signal during January. And so that means that much of Europe is coming away with a milder than average temperature anomaly. The UK is included in that as well. So the reason that's happening is that we've got high pressure, of course, down there. Remember, we've got low pressure out up here. And so between the two, we're bringing up wind from the west to southwesterly direction. So a mild Atlantic driven January being forecast by the CFS V2. Our temperature anomaly is coming out around 0.5 degree to 1 degree above average, and milder than that across many central and northern parts of Europe. Precipitation wise, that's how we're looking. So again, you can see where the high pressure is. It's down across southern parts of Europe. High pressure is down here around Spain, Portugal, and into Mediterranean. It will also back out into the Azores as well. And we've got low pressure, of course, up here, so lots of low pressure is in that sort of area, and it means that between the two, we're going to be getting the wind going something like that coming in from off the Atlantic. For the UK, it looks like Scotland is coming out a little, excuse me, again, a little bit drier than average. England and Wales is coming out very close to average with precipitation. But overall, this does look like a rather unsettled month for much of northern Europe. Now, this is going on to Beijing Climate Centre, so these are 500 millibar heights. Again, we break it down into 10-day periods. This time, the first 10-day period will take us from the 6th through to the 15th of January. The sort of first 10-day period has above average height centred over just a little bit to the southwest of the British Isles, and so we're doing something like that with the flow, and with the jet we bring wind in from off the Atlantic, so relatively settled, but also quite mild during that 10-day period from the 6th to the 15th of January. The next 10-day period takes us from the 16th through to 25th of January, still with above average height centred through the middle of the Atlantic and just a little bit to the west of the UK. We've got below average heights across Scandinavia and much of eastern, northeastern Europe, so the flow and the jet is rather like that. And then dipping down into a trough in the 500 millibar flow across eastern and northeastern parts of Europe. So that would leave us generally quite dry again during that 10-day period, but also relatively mild. We're still on the mild side of the jet stream. Then a bit of a change as we get through to the end of January. So this is from the 26th of January through to the 4th of February. And we're beginning to move that area up above average heights north. We're sending it up from the middle of the Atlantic in towards Greenland and Iceland. Trough of below average heights is here across northern and central parts of Europe. This will start to place us on the cold side of the jet. So at the end of January, possibly to the start of February, we're looking at starting to bring in colder air, I would have thought, from the north. That could be starting to turn things quite a bit colder, I think, as we get through to the very end of January and into start of February. Otherwise, though, a relatively sort of settled and quite mild month. Lots in store. This is the overall 30-day 500 millibar height anomaly, taking us from the 6th of January to the 4th of February. Above average heights, just to west-southwest. Flare and the Jets doing something a little bit like that. So a lot of settled weather during January, not particularly unsettled, but also quite mild. And any cold weather looks like it's primarily pushed back towards the end of the month. Temperature anomalies are forecast to be a little bit milder than average for January. Again, this is from the 6th of January to 4th of February, just a little bit above average. The anomaly is around half a degree or so above average, so not a big deviation, not a very mild January, but yes, it is a little bit on the milder than average side. And then precipitation wise, looks pretty dry really. Most parts of the UK coming away with a drier than average month. Again, not a big deviation, but just somewhere around 20% down on average rainfall. So they're both in agreement really for an Atlantic driven January, which means a relatively mild month. The winds frequently coming in from off the Atlantic. I think the CFS looks a little bit more unsettled out of the two of them. Beijing Climate Centre looks like it would be a relatively dry January. CFS would suggest a relatively unsettled month. And then, of course, we've got the Beijing Climate Centre hinting at us get later on in the month, towards the end of the month, we possibly have a better chance of something quite a lot colder developing right way towards the end of the month. That might tie in with the sudden stratospheric warming that I've been talking about in the videos recently. So, regardless whether it's January forecast, do we agree with that? And I think broadly they're on the right track with this. So I'm not expecting a particularly cold month, famous last words, but I think what will probably happen is that cold be a little bit on and off. And it is a real judgment, this, and it is a very tricky forecast due to that sudden stratospheric warming. I think there will be some cold outbreaks during this January. I don't think it'll be as mild as December. Again, famous last words. I don't think January will be as mild as December. But I think there will still be appreciable sort of mild outbreaks, mild episodes, alternating with colder interludes as well. I think the cold is going to struggle to really lock in before the end of the month. So getting true northern blocking to sort of lock in and last for several weeks is going to be very difficult, I think, during this January. We may get there, though, by the end of the month. So it's not impossible that by the end of January, we may be locked in to proper sustained northern blocking. But I think it's going to be quite on and off before we would get to that. So there's a lot of energy within the atmosphere. The Atlantic sea surface temperature anomalies are not particularly well set up for a negative NAO. They're more set up towards a positive NAO this year. We're transitioning to the westerly QBO. We know all of the factors that are complicating the chance of getting a cold winter, and I think those factors will be alternating with the sudden stratospheric warming, which does favour northern blocking. And so therefore I think we're a bit on and off with cold conditions. So the month overall probably comes away slightly milder than average, a little bit above average for January overall, but expect some quite potent cold snaps at times, and also expect that by the end of January there is the possibility that we could be locking into true northern blocking. So that's just something to watch out for, more or less in the last week or so of the month, I would have thought. Before then, just alternating between milder and cooler or colder outbreaks. Precipitation-wise, that's very difficult to judge. I expect it's going to be a rather changeable month, but whether it's all that wet, I'm not sure. I would actually go, I think, a little bit more of a Beijing Climate Centre on this. I think it could be a relatively dryish January, to be honest. I don't think it'll be as wet as last January was, for example. So, very difficult forecast for this January, but basically I think we're expecting quite a changeable month. A lot of alternating air masses going on. Sometimes will be quite cold, sometimes it could be very mild. Temperatures probably overall come out a little bit milder than average, but expect the cold snaps as they occur to be getting colder, and by the end of the month we might be locking into a true northern blocking proper sustained cold pattern. And precipitation wise, it is a changeable month, so there will be rainfall and even some snow at times, I would suspect, coming and going. But overall, probably a little bit on the drier than average side. Finally, just have a little sneak peek at February. So this is how CFSV2 is forecasting February to go. And basically, it's still westerly. So for February, we still have the above average heights down here to the southwest of Spain and Portugal. We still have below average heights up to the north. Between the two, we would still be bringing in a westerly flow. And so that will be a relatively mild end to what, of course, by then will be a mild winter. I think we'll worry about February when we get to it. There's enough going on with January. But if my suspicion about locking in to a proper blocked pattern by the end of January is correct, then February would look very, very different to that 700 millibar height normally. We would expect probably quite a cold end to the winter. But as I said, we'll worry about February when we get to it. Coming back to January, in the final analysis, we're expecting quite a changeable month. We think that milder and colder episodes will be alternating. We probably come out with a slightly milder than average month, but I don't think it should be as warm, as mild as December was. We might, by the end of January, find ourselves locked in to proper northern blocking and a real Arctic outbreak. And precipitation-wise, it looks like we're coming out a little bit drier than average, I think, although the pattern overall is quite changeable. I think overall, probably not overly wet. Right, so that's the January 2018 month-end forecast, 2019 month-end forecast done for you. We'll be back this afternoon with your week to 10-day video update, all of the latest on the sun stratospheric warming in Mach 1 as well. That's all for now, and thanks for watching.